In this video, I'm going to teach you this brand new AI study method that I discovered pretty recently, which is changing how I'm learning Spanish. And so I want to teach it to you in this video. If you don't know me, my name is Hamid. I'm 16 and fluent in 4 languages, including Spanish. I got fluent in Spanish at 13 years old in just 120 hours of studying. And now I help obsessed Spanish learners reach conversational fluency with my simple methods. Here's my quick before and after.
Podré para mejorar mi español cuando no tengo mucho tiempo libre para estudiar español. Quiero aprender español. Pues para mí me gusta jugar el ukulele para aprender español, así que ya lo sé la palabra el ukulele.
And so these are the 3 points we're going to cover in this video. The first is why most AI is trash for Spanish, okay? So, we'll start there right now. So, I remember recently, I was scrolling on YouTube and I found this video when I was doing research for this video as well, and when I was trying to find others who had discovered this method, which no one else had done. But when I was doing research for this video, I found some YouTubers talking about AI, right? And the most of the AI apps that I'd seen that were specifically tailored for learning Spanish were specifically for Spanish. And then I clicked and watched those videos, and there was a key thing that I discovered. So those AI apps are you send the message, so you say something, and then the AI will reply with another thing, but it will do it on text, okay? And the way it works is you'll speak into a little microphone thing, and then the AI will try to respond and give it an answer, okay? Now, though that concept by itself is good, most of these AI apps follow a model that it simply doesn't work. I'm gonna explain to you this model, okay? So I remember recently, my mom wants to learn English. So if you don't know me, I grew up in Sweden, and I was born and raised in Sweden. But my parents aren't Swedish, they're Azerbaijani, which is a country close to Turkey, right? And so they came to Sweden as immigrants, and they speak Swedish and Azerbaijani. And so with my parents, I speak Swedish and Azerbaijani, I mix with them. And my mom kind of recently, right, a few months ago, she came up to me and she was like, I want to learn English, okay? Because me and my siblings, we speak English with each other. So English is technically my strongest language, even though it's not my first language. And so she wanted to learn English because she had an event or something. She wanted to obviously learn English, right? And so she found this app, and I think it's called Elsa or something. And it's this AI teacher where you record yourself speaking English, and then the AI is supposed to try to correct you. And then that way you're speaking with a real human, and then it corrects you. And then firstly, it was way overpriced, and then we actually got scammed or something because my mom paid for it, and then she was she didn't get the full access to it, so it was literally a scam. But also the actual feature itself, there was a testing model, right? You could test out the AI, and it wasn't even accurate. My mom said something, and she has the Azerbaijani accent when you speak English is very akin to a Russian accent. So because her accent wasn't perfectly English, of course, because she didn't speak English, because she had this Russian-y sort of accent, the AI couldn't even pick up the words she was saying, and then the AI corrected something that wasn't even what she actually meant to say. And so the thing with AI is, and one caveat, and why I make this point of that most AI is trash for Spanish, because most of these AIs are following these models where they try to correct the words that you say, and it's all based on if they can pick up on the words. The problem is most AI, most of them, they struggle with picking up the words, especially if you don't have a good enough accent, okay? So then you might be asking, okay, then what is this new AI method, okay? What is this new thing that you discovered? Now, let me tell you a quick story, actually. So around about, I think a few months ago, this is the first time I'd used ChatGPT. So if you don't know what ChatGPT is, it's this AI model, and AI stands for artificial intelligence, if you didn't know that. And ChatGPT is the prominent, most popular one, right? Then there's Grok, and then there's Monica, but they all follow models of AI. I like watching philosophy videos, and one of these philosophical channels came on my feed, and he's not a philosophical guy, but his name is Alex O'Connor or something. He made a video talking about convincing ChatGPT that it's conscious, and it was a really interesting video. And so as I was watching it, the model of the video was he put his phone in front of a microphone, and then he spoke to AI and on ChatGPT, and it was this back and forth conversation that he had with ChatGPT, and that was super, super interesting to me. So then I was okay, is this free or not? And it turns out it was free, obviously with limitations. So then I went onto there, and I wanted to see if it spoke Spanish, and to my absolute surprise, it literally spoke fluent Spanish, and it even sometimes had an accent, which was so incredible to me. And in that moment, I was speaking Spanish, but I was having a conversation with AI in Spanish, and I just sort of thought about, hold on a second. This can be used to learn Spanish. Now, this is not in the same way like those, like those other methods, right? Because there are those AI models that don't really work. And then on the other side, people just don't use AI. I was always on that don't ever use AI side, because the way I learned Spanish was I followed the steps and the frameworks that led to conversational fluency. So I prioritized it. This is what I call the fluency equation, which is what we're going to talk about in the next step, which is how we should use AI. But like the way I got fluent wasn't through like AI at all. And granted, it was 3 years ago when I got fluent in the summer of 2022. So AI wasn't even that prominent. But basically, my sort of philosophy with this is that if AI can do it, it's probably not exceptional. If you were to ask AI for a device, that advice is going to be very cookie cutter, like you can find it on YouTube, on Google, because AI basically works like that. It searches Google and then it finds the most general answer it can give, right? That's why if you ask AI how to learn Spanish, it's going to give you the very cookie cutter methods, right? Which aren't even the most effective. I was always very against using AI, especially for like learning methods, right? But this way that I'm going to teach you in this video completely revolutionized this. And this is actually how I'm right now learning Spanish. I'm improving my Spanish. Obviously, I speak fluent Spanish, but I've reached conversational fluency. I want to reach native fluency, and I'm almost there. And this is actually what I'm using, okay? I'm going to teach you the method to using this. But first, let's talk about how should we use AI? If there is a way to use AI, what would it look like? And this is where we're going to talk about what I like to call the fluency equation. So we'll start with what I like to call Spanish versus real Spanish, okay? And this is essential, and this is sort of a big part about why AI usually isn't good. If we are going to use AI, this is the model that we want to follow. You probably already know this, but real world Spanish is not the same as what school, Duolingo, and like these most AI apps have been teaching us, right? We know that real world Spanish sounds different, and this is why I like to call it Spanish, in quotation marks, versus real Spanish, okay? So native Spanish speakers, they will have words like this, okay? Let's take the simple one, escúchame, right? Escúchame means listen to me, okay? A native would say escúchame. Literally, most natives, 90% of natives, you can bet that 99% of natives literally will say escúchame instead of escúchame. Even though escúchame is like the correct like word, it's the same concept in English, right? In English, no one says, are you going to go to work today? No one says that. We all say, are you going to go to work today? Are you going to... That's what the native Spanish speaker who's trying to learn English hears. We hear, are you going to go to work today? But the native Spanish speaker, when you say, are you going to go to work today, hears... In the same way that we would hear the native Spanish speaker when they're saying, aquí estoy, we would hear that as like, what are you saying? But you get it, it's the same equivalent. The way people speak language is that they speak it quicker. They connect the words, they smush them together, like to say. Es que hay muchos problemas would become es que hay mucho problema. Okay? And so, when we study Spanish, we want to not only keep this in mind, but actually, we want to learn Spanish. When we're going to learn vocabulary and we want to learn Spanish, we want to have this as our benchmark, right? The minimum is this. When you're learning Spanish, you want to know that this is what it's saying. But when you want to learn how to understand Spanish, you want to learn this, right? And so when we're trying to learn Spanish, we want to prioritize real Spanish. And here's just a list of what real Spanish means, okay? Compared to the fake Spanish. And, I realize this makes complete sense because when we learned our own native language, were we surrounded by real English or English, right? If you're an American watching this, if you're maybe from like New York or something, I know some people say finna, right? Finna. That's not even a word, right? But the reason why we even say that is because you grew up there and that's the real English that you learned. Because real English is not, I am going to go home. It's, I'ma go home, right? I am going to versus I'ma. Do you see how many fewer words we have on I'ma compared to I am going to? And this is why real Spanish and understanding the difference between real language versus fake language is so important. You don't say, I am wanting to learn English because I am very liking English in like an Indian accent. And I don't say that to offend anyone. But the reason why you don't say it like that is because that is not how your environment spoke. That is not how real English sounds like to you. Obviously, I'm not saying that that isn't real English. I'm just saying if you want to learn English from America, you want to learn English from America. If you want to speak with Americans, you should learn the English that's spoken in America or the US. And so it makes no sense for us to study the non-native accent because we don't want to learn it. You want to be able to speak fluently with natives, not with non-natives, right? Now, At the same time, we want to prioritize what I like to call the fluency equation, okay? So I remember when I first thought, firstly, of what fluency was, right? So I'd been watching tons of YouTube videos, and in the beginning, this guy in my class had started learning Spanish, and he was like not a really bright student. But I was like an A student. I had really, really good grades in 6th grade. And so when I saw this guy who wasn't really a bright student get better grades than me in Spanish, you can imagine how sort of like interested I was in what he was doing. And he was doing Duolingo Plus. And so it was kind of surprising to me, like, okay, doing actual Spanish outside of school can actually help you. I was like, okay, wow, let me see what other things there are. And obviously I tried Duolingo, I tried all these apps. And eventually I found an app that worked, which was language transfer, which when I say worked, I mean it followed this fluency equation better than any other app. And so I decided that the summer of 2022, my goal was to reach conversational fluency. And it was in that point where I was thinking about what fluency was. And so eventually I'd come to a perfect definition after doing tons of research on different apps and different YouTubers. So fluency is defined as being fluent. That's like the Oxford Dictionary definition, right? And being fluent is defined as having fluidity when you speak, having flow, okay? So this means that there's a stream of words coming out of your mouth. Imagine like a fluid, you can imagine something being fluid, right? It's in motion, it's like it's going, it's like a river flowing, right? And so it's a constant thing of words coming out of your mouth, right? But usually some people like to think that fluency is being able to speak effortlessly and articulately. But this isn't accurate in relation to what most people want when it comes to fluency. Because if I can speak fast, that doesn't necessarily mean that I can have conversations. And the goal of language, and assuming you're the person watching this, your goal with language and, learning Spanish is to connect with people, is to have conversations. And so the best way to define fluency, in my opinion, is to separate them into two categories, conversational and native. Conversational being where both parties understand each other in a conversation. This means that the flow, the fluidity, isn't necessarily only in the speech, but it's in the conversation. So there is a flow, yes, because you can't be fluent if there's no flow. But the flow doesn't have to be in your speech. You can sometimes pause and say right? But the flow is in the conversation. As long as there's a back and forth, you are conversationally fluent, okay? And native fluency is where you are indistinguishable from a native. And these two are so far apart that it's insane. And it matters because of what I like to call the effort discrepancy. So the amount of time and effort that it takes to reach conversational fluency compared to native level fluency is massive. But the amount of results you get from conversational fluency compared to native level fluency is minuscule. Meaning, for conversational fluency, you'll put way less effort and you'll get way more results. Compared to native fluency, where you put way more effort and time and you'll get way less results. And so the goal should be conversational fluency, which took me personally 120 hours of studying spread across 5 to 6 months. This is why you can see in the after video, you didn't hear it. You heard me like stutter a bit and, there was still a flow, but you heard me stutter here and there. But I was still able to have an hour-long conversation with natives. Whereas with native level fluency, this is something I'm still working on. This is the path that has been affected by the AI method that I'm going to teach you in this video. But basically, we want to understand that the goal is conversational fluency. And the reason why this is so great with AI is because AI can have conversations with you. And this is where we get into how we're going to use AI, okay? Now, before then, I just want to explain what fluency is, okay? So fluency as an equation is this. And P.S., this is literally gold. This is the main part of my program when I teach my students Spanish. Link in the description if you're interested. This is like the core fundamentals of that. A conversation has only two elements to it: speaking and understanding. Think about this. If it's a conversation and you and me are speaking, okay? What are we doing? I'm speaking and you are understanding my audible speech. That's it. And then when it's your time to speak, then you are speaking and I am understanding your audible speech. Meaning the only two skills that are occurring are speaking and understanding. And so the only two skills that we should focus on for fluency, and in this context, conversational fluency, is speaking and understanding. And so anything that doesn't prioritize speaking and understanding in the sense of audible Spanish, is a constraint, or rather, it's something that is beneficial but not to the max. Okay, it's a distraction, so to speak. Okay, and so to expand upon it, we want to be speaking real Spanish and understanding real Spanish because we want to have conversational fluency with real Spanish. right? And then Spanish can be defined as grammar and vocabulary. We won't go into that, but it's just a simple, quick thing, okay? You can ignore that for now because it's not relevant to this video. And so the fastest way to get fluent and the most effective would be the method that prioritizes only these two aspects of language, okay? And to prove this, I have two Arabic friends and they speak Arabic. They're fluent. They're literally native fluent in Arabic, okay? Because they grew up speaking it. They can't read or write Arabic for shit. Excuse my language. They can't read or write Arabic. They can't. But they're completely fluent, perfect accent. They can completely have a complete flow, everything. And so the only two parts that they have are speaking and understanding, because that's all they need for fluency. Fluency only requires speaking and understanding real Spanish, right? And that's in relation to conversation fluency. If you're watching this, the goal is conversation fluency, right? If you're here to learn Spanish to write a novel, okay, this doesn't apply. Even though as a hidden benefit of the fluency equation, you will learn how to write. If you want to learn how to write, you probably need to write Spanish. Probably. If you want to get stronger abs, you probably need to train your abs. And so now let's talk about the actual method, okay? So we know firstly, most AI is not good for Spanish. We know that. Secondly, we know that we need to use AI in the way that prioritizes the fluency equation. Okay, so what is the method? And this is the method that I've been working on for the past few months, and I'm going to give it to you in this video. So I like to call this spot and speak, okay? And this is the method that prioritizes the fluency equation, okay? So, like we said, the fluency equation is exactly just a conversation, meaning the best way to get fluent would be to have more conversations. I mean, it's very simple. This guy, I remember I saw this guy Shalma who got fluent in Spanish in like 20 days or something crazy, right? Conversation fluent. And all he did was have conversations with natives. That's all he did. And it makes sense, right? You get better at what you do. If you want to get better at having conversations with natives, you should probably have more conversations with natives. Now, that means that the best exercise to get fluent in Spanish is to have more conversations, which is exactly what we did to get fluent in our own native language, right? Exactly what my Arabic friends did to get fluent in their native language. Now, I like to do this through a framework I call Spot and Speak. It's a very simple framework, and it's the framework that I've been working on for the past few months. So I used to do this framework with real natives, okay? But now that you can do it with AI is one of the best ways to do this, okay? And it's great because it means that in the beginning, when you're shy and don't want to speak with natives because you're not confident in your Spanish, this can be a great substitute. However, the one fault here is that AI, unless you pay for the ChatGPT Plus thing, it's actually quite limited when it comes to accents. Whereas when you speak with natives, it is literally the full-blown test. Because natives, we know the natives actually have like accents. Whereas AI, when you speak with AI like ChatGPT, it doesn't have like an accent. Unless you specifically ever ask it to have an accent, and you have to have plus to get an accent. That being said, ChatGPT Plus does have accents, which is great, right? And also, speaking with natives is literally the goal that we had in the beginning. So if you can do that, then boom, you've achieved the goal, right? The first step of this framework is spot. The first step is to just spot the areas of vocabulary that you aren't comfortable in. So this means that you go to AI and you say, hey, let's have a conversation. And then in Spanish, of course. And then you start speaking with AI. And eventually, you're going to spot the areas of vocabulary that you aren't comfortable in, that you're not very confident in. So business, cooking, telling the time, etc. So what we want to do is develop a list of topics, okay? And the goal is then to now work more on these topics, right? And here I wrote that you can do with transcript training. That's another method that I talk about on my channel, which talks about how to learn vocabulary in Spanish, which is a part of the fluency equation. You can watch other videos to learn about that. But if you're just going to do this method, all you need to know is that the goal is now to work more on those topics. So now the first step is just find a list of topics that you struggle speaking Spanish with AI. All you do is to try to have more conversations on those topics with AI. And so when you don't know how to say something or you didn't understand what they said, then you can use tools to find those out. And the tools you can use is literally AI. Because if the AI said something, you can ask them, what does this mean? Explain it. And boom. Right? Other tools you can use are like online programs like mine. You can also use DeepL to translate. There are many tools you can use. AI is also a really good one because AI can always explain what they said themselves, right? And so the goal is to repeat this so many times that pretty much any conversation on any topic will be a breeze for you. Meaning you're basically practicing conversations with AI before having conversations with natives. And what happens is you practice the conversations before having the conversations with natives, so that you practice what you're going to do, right? A good example I can give you is recently Mr. Beast, like this very, very big YouTuber. I think he's the biggest YouTuber on YouTube. he made a video where this guy called Majd, he did like a transformation video where he lost a bunch of weight. Mr. Beast gave him a challenge where he would circle around the entire like house with like bags of money. And so guess what his trainer told him to do? Literally that. The trainer told him to take weights and then walk around, because that's the skill that he was practicing for, right? The skill that he wanted to achieve was to be able to hold a bunch of weight while walking, basically, right? And so that's what he trained for by doing it. People who want to get better at swimming will swim. And so if you want to get better at having conversations on specific topics, then you need to have more conversation on those specific topics. And AI can do this really, really well. And so I used to do this with HelloTalk, which, by the way, you can do this with natives as well. This is what you do. Like when you're speaking with a native, you always want to spot the things that you struggle speaking about and then like put that on like your list of topics. Because when you have a list of weaknesses on vocabulary that you struggle with, that means those are the topics where you need to learn that vocabulary, okay? And so I used to do this on an app called HelloTalk, which is a language exchange app, which is basically where you can access natives online, right? But that was hard because of time zone differences, and also a lot of people just treat it like a dating app, and it's really creepy and weird. So recently, I just started doing this with AI, which is perfect because firstly, it's not embarrassing, right? There's no pressure with AI. It's literally a robot, okay? If you feel pressure with a robot, you probably have other issues. And also AI is super patient, and you can ask them to correct your Spanish. Now, here's the caveat. With most AIs, most of the apps that are built for Spanish are usually the worst, which is insane, but they usually don't pick up on the words that you're saying very well. AI, like ChatGPT, is actually much better at picking up, like, the words, okay? But a lot of times, if it doesn't pick up the words, you can actually say, and like, oh, I meant to say blank, and you can actually type as well. That's why I think ChatGPT is the best one for this. You can also use Grok. There are many of them, but I think ChatGPT is the best one because it's free and it works very well. It checks off all the boxes, so to speak. But when it comes to asking them to correct your Spanish, just make sure that you're cognizant of the things that you are saying and the things that AI says, okay? So the great thing is, though, with ChatGPT, let's say you're speaking to it, you can actually just exit out of it and then you can see the conversation you had in a text format, which again will help you distinguish real Spanish versus Spanish. And so in a conversation with AI, it might say, aquí estoy, escúchame, que hay mucho problema. Whereas in the text, it's always going to say, aquí estoy, escúchame, es que hay muchos problemas, etc. And so you're able to fact check the Spanish versus the real Spanish, okay? And this is also why I prefer doing with ChatGPT, because other AIs might not do that. And so that is the AI study method that is changing how I'm learning Spanish, and that is the new way that I am now using to learn Spanish. This is just a small piece from my program, and so if you do want to implement these frameworks and finally learn Spanish in a clear and structured way, then check the description to join my program. But act now because I don't know when the price may increase, and so if you want the cheaper price now, then check the description to join. Otherwise, as a free gift for you for staying to the end in this video, you can grab my free, easy-to-use Cognate cheat sheet to instantly unlock thousands of Spanish words with no email needed. Like, you don't need to opt in or anything. It's just yours as it's my gift for you, okay? And you'll literally learn thousands of Spanish words just like that. Otherwise, thank you for watching this video. I would really appreciate it if you shared it with someone who you'd think would benefit. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Stay humble.